Ukraine has found a winning formula by striking at the very core of Russia's economy, its fuel refineries. These facilities are not only vital for keeping the civilian sector running, but also for supplying the Russian military with gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel. Each successful attack reduces Russia's export capacity, cuts into state revenues, and directly disrupts military logistics. By forcing Moscow to divert resources to protect and repair energy infrastructure, Ukraine weakens both the battlefield supply chain and Russia's economic stability, turning fuel into a strategic vulnerability. Besides the Syzran refinery, strike drones attacked the Krasnodar oil refinery, causing a large-scale fire to break out on the territory of the enterprise. The fire covered about 300 square meters. The fire started at one of the processing units, but due to the rapid spread of the flames, it spread to other areas of the plant. The fire was also confirmed by NASA's FIRM service, which records abnormal temperature increases on the ground. According to its data, the fire was detected at 3:45 a.m. The Cyber-Boroshno community, having analyzed the available materials, concluded that the drones hit the AVT, atmospheric vacuum tube, plant, which is the basis of the entire technological chain of the enterprise. Its main purpose is the primary distillation of crude oil to produce various petroleum products and semi-finished products for further processing. Despite the fact that the refinery was damaged and numerous photos and videos of the enterprise, the operational headquarters of the Krasnodar region officially reported that the fire had been caused by the fall of the wreckage of a downed drone. It is worth noting that the Krasnodar oil refinery is one of the largest and oldest operating refineries in Russia. Its design capacity allows it to process about 3.1 million tons of oil per year. The refinery itself is located approximately 250 kilometers from the territory controlled by Ukraine. The company produces a wide range of products: gasoline, diesel fuel, gas condensate distillate, TS1 jet fuel, and is the only producer of TS1 fuel in Russia, marine fuel, fuel oil, and road bitumen. Earlier, Warthog Defense reported that the Kuibyshev oil refinery in Samara, Russia, had stopped working after a massive attack by Ukrainian attack drones. The drones hit the primary oil refining units AVT-4 and AVT-5, which are critical for the entire production cycle. The UAVs also hit a liquefied natural gas overpass, a gas pipeline, a gasoline pipeline, a hydrogen production unit, and a diesel fuel tank, causing several fires. The Kuibyshev oil refinery has a refining capacity of about 7 million tons of oil per year and is one of the leading oil refineries in the Volga region. It is owned by the Russian state-controlled company Rosneft and processes oil produced by the company in western Siberia and the Samara region. Commander of Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Magyar Brovdy, confirmed that Ukrainian missile and drone units struck the 8N Nitopovichy linear production dispatch station in Russia's Bryansk region on August 29th. Operated by Transneft, the facility pumps fuel through key pipelines to the Russian military. The strike has significantly disrupted fuel logistics. Oil-related incidents in Russia continue. A minor oil leak was recorded at the port of Novorossiysk. It occurred during a loading operation with the tanker T. Semahat, and the spill was promptly contained. Rosmorek Flot. More than a ton of petroleum products spilled, and a state of emergency has been declared at the Caspian Pipeline Consortium Marine Terminal, a source from TASS Emergency Services. An emergency situation occurred. There are no casualties or injuries, and there is no fire hazard. And we have an interesting story here. Russian refugees deported by the United States back to Russia have experienced intensive interrogation, threats, violence, and torture, according to Russian sources. Thousands of Russians have fled to the U.S. to escape the war and political persecution by the Putin regime. On 27 August, 50 Russians were deported from the U.S. to Russia, including dozens of asylum seekers. According to Dmitry Valuev, They comprised Russian citizens who were in immigration prisons in the United States, who had lost asylum cases or chose self-deportation. The Russian human rights activist Vladimir Osechkin reports, a plane with a convoy of Egyptian special services. At Cairo airport, American ICE officers handed the Russians over to Egyptians for subsequent transfer to Russia. Arrived at Domodedovo airport, where dozens of Russian special services were already waiting for the deportees. A source for Gulagu.net reports that all those forcibly deported from the United States to Domodedovo were put through filtration, hours of interrogation using pressure, threats, and for some, violence and special means. Almost all of those who returned were pressured by FSB and Interior Ministry operatives to cooperate, interrogated about the reasons for their trip to the U.S. and details of their detention and placement in detention, requests for political asylum, and the functioning of U.S. services, ICE, FBI, Justice Department, courts, lawyers, human rights activists, and forced to provide information about flight neighbors, snitching. Following the filtering, some were released on the condition of cooperating. Others, who are not of operational interest at the moment, on the condition of participating in a propaganda campaign against the U.S. West, participation in talk shows, interviews, etc., with the purpose of advertising the return to the Russian Federation. But a number of men and women were detained for subsequent transfer to temporary detention facilities and pre-trial detention centers, including those who had previously served in the Russian armed forces and refused to take part in the war against Ukraine. The source reports that torture, violence, and special means were used against a number of individuals, and threats were made to commit violent acts against them in a perverted form and send them to zero in the special military operation, to the front line, to the occupied territories of Ukraine to participate in the war. The war in Ukraine and the Russian government's persecutions of political opponents and LGBT people have caused a large increase in the number of Russians applying for asylum in the U.S. Figures have increased from 10,000 in 2021 to 36,000 in 2022 and 57,000 in 2023. They include anti-war activists, opposition figures, LGBT people who have faced persecution, and men who have either deserted from the Russian army or are evading mobilization. The latter seem to have prompted security concerns in the U.S., leading to the mass detention of Russians crossing the border from Mexico and seeking asylum. Many were detained under the Biden administration. Some have sued to be released. Now, under Trump, Russian refugees are being deported despite a clear threat to their lives. Vladimir Osechkin reports that 7 charges have already been brought against the deportees for offenses ranging from cooperation with undesirable organizations to high treason. As Osechkin puts it, what these people told ICE officers, as well as in court, is confirmed and is becoming a nightmare in reality. The deportations indicate that the Trump administration is ignoring both U.S. and international law in relation to the protection of refugees. They appear to violate the principle of non-refoulement, a fundamental principle of international law forbidding a country from deporting individuals to a country where their life or freedom would be threatened, on account of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. The U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act specifically prohibits the removal of someone who has not been granted asylum, but shows that their life or freedom would be threatened because of certain characteristics if they were sent back to their country of origin.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.